It's not easy, just you have to stay mentally ready, and try to get back as soon as possible.
Jan Vesely, born April 24th, 1990. Today's feature is regarded as one of the worst top 10 draft picks in NBA history, and you know what? It may not even be his fault. The hype for Jan Vesely was blown so out of proportion, he was given names like the European Blake Griffin, back when the real Blake Griffin was still Grifinnin. Or how about the Flying Czech, or most interesting of them all, the Flying Ninja? Whichever stuck, it convinced losing record GM Ernie Grunfeld to draft Jan Vesely 6th overall over a total of 6 All-Stars, 4 future Hall of Famers, and 5 that have made an All-NBA team. The biggest of them are Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, and Jimmy Butler, who all could have immediately helped the Wizards' desperate need for a franchise wing. The same Wizards that missed the playoffs in both Vesely's full seasons with the team, winning 20 and 29 games as one of the worst teams in the league both years. They finally made the playoffs in 2013-14, but only after he was traded mid-season to the Nuggets. Say what you want about Shaquille O'Neal, but a lot of players after him that weren't big and clunky like he is shot a lot worse from the foul line. Jan Vesely was one of them, shooting 40% from 3 for his 3-year career. The Wizards at the time were trying to make a splash and maybe get lucky on the next Dirk Nowitzki, or maybe it was Grunfeld's love for European players, or it could have been Vesely's high-energy playstyle and obvious athleticism prior to the NBA that made him the choice. But when he arrived to the league, he was anything as advertised, averaging 3 points, 3 rebounds, and shooting 53, 30, and 33% from the foul line for his career. I say it may not have been his fault because that's what hype does. It takes a player exuding advanced development skills and highlights fitting what could be a good player and turn them into the hot name in the draft that year, for one team to overvalue focusing on those occasional displays of greatness. Jan, before he came to the NBA, was an upcoming star in the Euroleague, winning the Fiba Young Men's Player of the Year in 2010, but an average prospect if you're a GM that understands the difference in a star overseas and a star in the NBA. After all, taking a guy 6th overall says at some point you expect him to be that important for your team. After his 3 years in the NBA, he went back to the Euroleague and looked right, being on the level he was always supposed to be on. What happened to the Euroleague Blake Griffin? Let's talk about it. It's your boy Vesely Stunted Growth. Let's cut it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Jan Vesely is a 7-foot center and power forward from the Czech Republic that was a tall, stringy kid growing up, always interested in basketball and dominant from an early age because of his height. He hit the NBA radar in 2008 playing with the Serbian club Partizan, who he helped reach the Euroleague Final Four in 2010 and won the award for the best young player in the league. Somewhere he picked up the comparison to Blake Griffin, arguably the hottest name in basketball at the time, for the never-before-seen posters he caught almost nightly. He averaged 10 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 1 assist per game in his final season with Partizan before coming to the NBA, and outside his athleticism, didn't display he had much more to his game to deserve the 6th overall pick. Yet, that's exactly what the Wizards made him in 2011. Stunt number 1, the Wizards taking him so early. This, other than injury, is low-key one of the main reasons players bust in the NBA after coming in with so much hype. If some of these players were taken later in the draft, they might have had better careers with less pressure to develop into something they never could have been. Anthony Bennett should have never went number 1 in 2013 after an average freshman year at UNLV, and I think the pressure got to him to come in and be the next LeBron James. Like Bennett, Vesely was a developing Euro player, but hadn't shown he could come in and help an NBA franchise more than running out and finishing on a fast break or around the rim, which isn't at all a rare find in the amount of qualified players that come out every year. The Wizards, after drafting hype prospect John Wall 1st overall the year before, began in search of the perfect wing fit next to him instead of taking the most talented and skilled players that could fit a need on the team with or without John Wall. Imagine John Wall, Bradley Beal, who could shoot and create for himself, and Klay Thompson or Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler. Granted, all three of those players weren't expected to be the future Hall of Famers they eventually became and had to be in great situations to develop, but they at least showed more than Vesely, as all he did in his time before the league was show he had the most generic gift when it comes to American prospects and an American-based league like the NBA, athleticism. By 2011, we seen point guards put their name in the hat for some of the most athletic players ever in the league. A great percentage of players that play the shooting guard position or higher can do exactly what Vesely did and a lot more. He was the 5th most turnover-prone player in a study done by Draft Express, the 5th worst jump shooter in the Euroleague, and one of the worst at the foul line as well. In the NBA, he averaged more turnovers than assists, shot 40% from the foul line while never attempting a single three. Without the hype, the Wizards or any team could have gotten Vesely in the second round, which is where he belonged and possibly would have seen more growth and a happier player. Stunt number 2, mentally wasn't ready. Jan Vesely said of his time playing in the NBA, he wasn't happy. He didn't love basketball. Unfortunately for the Wizards, they didn't have a spell that could have seen this one coming. Had they, Jan Vesely would have never been drafted so high and the league would have looked totally different today. What may have made him so sad and struggle mentally was Coach Flip Saunders, who after getting Vesely in training camp and seeing he wasn't the player he was hyped to be before the draft, played him just over 15 minutes per game before Saunders, who went 2-15, was fired. Coach Randy Whitman then took over after 17 games and played Vesely more minutes and also encouraged the rookie to shoot the ball more and be more aggressive. Vesely also said that for him, it wasn't about the skill or technique, but the mental aspect of being so far from home and on a bad team that mentally took a toll on him. Add to that, he wasn't playing well and could already hear the rumblings of him being a bust and a letdown to his team. But this is the risk you take when going after a player who his entire life, even though the same sport, basketball has been such a different experience. It goes without saying the Euroleague is very different from the NBA in that the NBA is more individual based, where teams have real hierarchy on rosters, meaning you may not get a chance to show what you can do if sitting behind a more invested in player, versus in Europlay, it's more team-oriented and any player on any given night can have the best stats. This is because fundamentally they share the ball more and utilize their mismatches, not encourage one star to get his averages by any means, so it increases the league's popularity. Mentally, being in Washington was too much for Jan, whose minutes declined every year with the team until they had to play him to increase his value before trading him mid-third year. Stunt number 3, lack of other skills. One growth stunt Vesely has to take in stride is him not having a great deal of other skills than athleticism, which got him his boarding pass to the NBA. Even in his time in Europe, he didn't show he could create his own shot, which was amongst the bottom of qualified players in usage rate the year before being drafted for a reason. Just 2.8% of his offense came in isolation situations. That's because as a ball handler, he never developed that skill, as all his points prior to being drafted were mainly points created for him off fast break finishes, putbacks, or dish-offs around the rim for an easy dunk for a 7-footer that's compared to Blake Griffin. All this became true in the NBA as well. He had no post-game moves to speak of, although in Europe he did show a mini turnaround fadeaway that wasn't given opportunities to develop in the league. For a bad team looking for a player with skill that could go create his own offense, Vesely didn't turn out skill-wise to be the Wizards guy. Yes, he's a center, but for him to have never shot a 3 in his career, in the era of the stretch 4 and 3-point shot becoming a thing, was very telling of the lack of skill or effort in developing that skill in the league. But as he says, he just wasn't happy to. He was traded and played 21 games in Denver before leaving to sign on in Turkey, where he's won EuroLeague MVPs and been one of their best players. All in all, Jan Vesely's story is a guy who overall wasn't a good fit in the NBA. He never should have been taken so high, signing him up for the role of one of the worst ever and bust. At least he understood this and left as soon as possible, where he regained his love for the game. He had all the hype in the world, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.